It can get rimmed like a potato.
It can rim my potato ass.
Was that recorded, or will our audience be completely baffled by that turn of
I
conversation?
think it's in the recording. It's just up to the editor at this point. But yeah, it can lick my potato ass.
Welcome to the Skiffy and Fanty Show's Torture Cinema.
If I'm part of the Merry Men, and you're both part of the Merry Men, why aren't we all wearing tights?
Because then we'd be in a much better movie.
Because there's no tights in this fucking movie.
Exactly. We can only hope that one day.
I mean, that's how you know it's a good movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Does
the
it have
tights.
tights or not?
One day, we'll find
Yeah,
Robin Hood with
one
tights
day.
again. One day.
One day. I'm Sean.
And I'm Becca.
I'm Alex.
And on today's show, we'll talk about what we're drinking and Robin Hood, a 2018 film directed by Otto Bathurst, written by Ben Chandler and David James Kelly, and starring Taron Egerton, Jamie Foxx, Ben Mendelsohn, Eve Hewson, Jamie Dornan, and Tim Minchin, among others. Becca picked this movie because I was being nice to Becca and let Becca pick it. And I just would like to say on behalf of all members of this show, fuck you, Becca.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Big fuck you to Becca.
Absolutely.
I needed you to
suck.
suffer with
You
me.
suck.
You absolute piece of turd.
Just visiting the violence that was done to
exactly.
you on other people. Anyway, so before we get further into this garbage pile, here's a friendly reminder that we want to hear from you. Share your comments with us about this and past episodes at skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions. We want to put together a listener mailbag episode with your thoughts, questions, topic suggestions, and more. So get those thoughts in. Please, tell us what you think about this fucking train wreck.
Well, at least 3 Patreon supporters of this podcast were present for the live watch. And I think they all have opinions, and they could easily share via that link. So go for it.
Yes.
So.
Do it, you cowards.
Oh, absolute monsters. So here we go. Let's get to what we're drinking. So, Alex, I have been told by the gods that you have 2 beverages you will be consuming tonight. What are those beverages?
So I am on a Left Hand Brewing Company kick, and the first beverage that I am on is a double milk stout, which is 10.5% ABV, so it's basically 2 beers in 1 beer bottle. It is delightful and smooth, with a bit of a bite. And then to finish it up on something lighter, I have a Left Hand Brewing Company Flamingo Dreams, which is a berry blonde ale that's a nitro, so it is smooth and crisp and fruity.
They both sound
Just
yummy.
like me.
Just like you.
Just like smooth, crisp, and fruity.
Oh, that's beautiful.
What about you, Sean? What kind of disgusting garbage pailed beverage did you make for this movie?
Oh, no. I did not do any garbage pail. I decided that while this film does not deserve fancy schmancy stuff, I made a fancy schmancy cocktail.
Yeah, you deserve the cocktail.
You are worth
the movie
it.
does.
You are worth it.
I wanted to be nice to me. You know?
After what we have endured, you deserve it.
I did. So I went and looked at fairly popular British cocktails, or cocktails that are popular in Britain, at least. Given that this movie is not technically in Britain, even though it is technically in Britain, it's just not real Britain.
I have some shit to say about that.
Oh, we will get into the anachronisms of this shitfest, but first, this is not anachronistic.
Sean. The geography!
Oh, well, okay. Great. I am so glad we're going to each rip this movie's conception of how the world works for very different reasons.
Christ.
I'm happy. But what I'm drinking is what's called an Old Etonian. I know almost nothing about this cocktail except it's old, and it has the word old in it. But what is inside it is gin. In this case, I used Tacurnay's, their orange gin, which has like orange zest already in it because I wanted more fruity notes. And it also has Lillet Blanc, because why not? And then it has Crème de Noyau, which is a liqueur, like an apricot liqueur. It just has a fancy French name because they're French. And orange bitters.
It's French.
That does sound really yummy.
That does sound very tasty.
It's very stiff, but it is...
A better thing to come out of Eton than the current Prime Minister.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's a good point.
You are correct.
Yeah.
Very good. Becca, what about you? What are you putting inside of your body?
I am drinking it's called Orange Smash. It's from Devil's Backbone Distilling Company in Virginia. And it's 7.5% ABV. And so
nice.
it's just vodka with orange juice in a can, carbonated.
So it's just a carbonated
It's just
screwdriver?
a carbonated screwdriver.
Okay.
And they also have lemon ones. I got the orange this time, but I might try the lemon ones next time. But I got it because it's like a Virginia company, and I'm partial
You
to
wanted
Virginia.
to support the local.
Yeah, you know.
So, I mean, what was the joke? Like the vodka and orange juice screwdriver, vodka and prune juice pile driver.
Oh, that's terrible.
Does that actually go together, though?
I mean, I'm sure it could.
Does vodka go with anything? I don't know.
Vodka-
Well,
I don't like
vodka's pretty inoffensive as a
Yeah.
flavor, so it can kind of go with most
But
things.
yeah, so I have 2 cans
Unless
of
you
this.
get like
There you
a real meaty potato vodka, and then like that tastes like you're eating a potato's ass. But yeah. So
Thank
you're welcome
you
for that image.
It's exactly what I needed today.
Sean, rimming the potato.
I legit want to know if there's like a cocktail with prune juice, though. Like, since
There
we're on the
has to
subject
be.
of things related to the ass, we might as well stay on the prune juice because my grandfather used to drink lots of prune juice when he, I suppose he had an issue he needed the prune juice to solve to stay regular. I don't know
Look,
exactly why
when
the
you
prune
become a
juice does
person
that.
of a certain age, Sean,
Look,
things don't work as well as they
Look,
used to.
I don't dislike prune juice. I actually kind of like it, but I would love to know
It's the
what I
drink
could
of
do with
warriors.
it. Like, is there a good prune juice cocktail that I can make? Listener suggestions, folks. I want to know.
Yeah, design a prune juice
Would be
cocktail
interesting.
for us.
Yeah, there we go. All right, well, let's get to this movie, shall we?
If we have to.
Do we have to?
Yeah, I mean, we got to get this over with because the sooner we pull the Band-Aid off,
Christ.
the better.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already wandered
Ugh.
into rimming potatoes, so...
And that is yet another more interesting topic than this fucking
Oh
movie.
my god.
Yeah, the logistics of rimming a potato. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, where is the ass of
yeah.
a potato? That is the good
So
question.
which of us is doing the summary? I don't think we discussed that.
I've listed it as myself because I figured
Oh, okay.
I would be kind
Thank
to
you.
my co-hosts, and so I will give you this this fuck fest of a movie. Oh god. So 2018's Robin Hood stars Taron Egerton as Robin of Locksley. The only time this movie will be relatively accurate to what we know of Robin Hood's story, largely because it just gets names vaguely sort of kind of right. He plays Robin of Locksley, who is sent off to Arabia in what is, I guess, technically the Crusades. He's drafted, I want to note, drafted. Specifically, again, I'm emphasizing, drafted with a draft notice, and then sent to Arabia to fight, where he and a bunch of other people become like this mobile unit of like super soldier Hawkeye wannabes who...
In an unsubtle allegory of the Iraq War.
Yes, in a very unsettled allegory of the Iraq War. He, in his time there, becomes... We're told by their interviews, but not by the movie itself, becomes disillusioned by the war that's happening there, and then meets a character who just goes by John because nobody can say his name right, and I didn't look it back up to see if I could
It's
say
Yahya
Yeah.
Ibn Umar, I
Yahya.
believe.
Yeah.
So it's not even
yeah.
that hard to say.
Yeah. I didn't
Yeah.
look it up again because I hate this movie and I didn't want to have to watch any scenes of the movie. But he says his
That's
name
fair.
multiple times in the fucking movie and nobody bothers to try. But anyway, played by Jamie Foxx. He goes by the name John. This is our version of Little John, who is a Moor. We also have Ben Mendelsohn as the Sheriff Nottingham. In any case, our Robin gets disillusioned. He tries to save this Moor. He gets in a fight. I don't know. Somehow they end up back in Nottingham and his whole estate has been shuttered and sold, but not for any purpose that makes any sense. So it's just they took it for the taxes, but they're not using it, so they're not. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
It makes no
makes
sense.
no sense.
It makes no sense.
John follows him there under the guise that he wants to get vengeance for the death of his son, who is murdered by other members of Taron Egerton's magic Hawkeye wannabe troop.
Specifically, Gisborne, who is the guy who's the
Right.
like crusty Iraq War sergeant who yells at people character in this. It's real bad.
He's basically the American Sniper guy. And in any case, he comes back, they decide to team up, and then he decides to steal from the rich, and I guess technically give to the poor, but mostly just gives it to Marion, who was his old squeeze, who I guess he was married to, but then he was dead for a while for some reason. And then she married Will Scarlet, played by another guy who, whatever, Jamie Dornan. Whatever.
Yeah.
In any case, like...
Jamie Dornan, who for once is getting to use his actual, like, native accent, which is kind of nice.
He gets 3 points, so...
I mean, we're going to talk more about his character later.
And that's kind of the plot. Like, he's trying to take down the Sheriff of Nottingham, who's, like, working with the Catholic Church, but also working with, like, forces in Arabia to, like, take down the King of England for some reason. And that's all going on.
Yeah.
But then he wants to bone Marion again, so he, like, sends her money at night and then stares at her awkwardly at night while she's in her night clothes. Like, there's all kinds of just weird stuff that goes on. And honestly, past that point, I don't know what this fucking movie's about. Tim Minchin is played Friar Tuck. That's about it.
All I can add is there's some kind of thing about how, like, they're having this war and all of the money is going to the church and the church is actually paying the Moors for reasons. Something, church bad, nobility bad, really bad attempt at class consciousness that we will talk about later. There's
class consciousness in this?
A distinct lack of it.
We're going to talk about how Jamie Dornan turns into a class traitor because his sexy lamp lady person kisses someone.
Okay. Is that anyone's dislike?
I'm so fucking mad.
Is that their dislike?
I have so many dislikes. It is but among them.
Okay, great. It's not my dislike, but let's just talk about it before we try to find things we like about this movie.
Okay.
So, Will Scarlet, played by Jamie Dornan, his character is married to Marion when Robin of Locksley returns. And this is like a big to-do.
Are they actually married? I just thought they were like kissy face.
I mean, they're living together, but it's not made clear if that's a thing in this universe, because this universe makes no sense.
This universe makes no fucking sense.
It's nice. We're not given a clear time period. We're not given a clear setting.
Well, no, they give you a clear time period, and then the movie makes no coherent sense with the time period they've supposedly given us, because they specifically say it's during the Third Crusade, and then nothing else in the fucking movie makes sense in the context of Third Crusade.
The thing is, I just assumed that she was married to him because I have this notion that that's what you do back in those times, that a woman just living with another man would not be considered acceptable. But then again, I'm not a medieval scholar, so what the fuck do I know? But in any case,
I mean, you know, as far as I know, back in those times, it was also unacceptable for women to wander around with their hair uncovered. So
who knows? Like this,
there is nothing like time period compliant about
not
this.
Literally nothing.
I mean, that might actually be my main dislike. But okay, like this Jamie Dornan thing. So he's Will Scarlet. I think he's somehow kind of in charge of the working class people of Nottingham, which is also, like, completely incoherent because the working class, as we conceive of it, did not exist at that time.
Correct.
And there's, like, these mines that somehow don't actually belong to anyone except the working class
But are also
people.
right across a bridge from Nottingham, but are somehow not part of Nottingham, but are less than 3 minutes away.
They're not part of Nottingham. Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. But he's, like, somehow in charge. And then he's like Marion talks him into being part of the really clumsily put together, like, revolution sort of allegory thing about, like, we're gonna stand up to this war and say no more war or whatever. It's so poorly done. And, like, literally what fucking happens is, like, they're doing a heist thing and, like, they drop this carriage full of money through the street, and Marion and Robin are, like, taking the money out of it, and then something happens, and they kiss. And despite the fact that he's literally physically incapable of seeing them, he feels through you know, the ether that they were canoodling. And then he, like, falls over like he got shot in the back, but instead he got, like, hit in the face with something. And then he's just, like, you know, Marion and Robin both try to come back for him, and he's basically just like, you kissed my sexy lamp, I want nothing to do with you anymore, fuck off. So they leave him, and then at the end of the movie, they make him the new sheriff, and you can tell that he is an evil class traitor because his face is disfigured. Thanks for that fucking trope, you ableist pieces of shit.
This is like preceded by, so Marion is part of like the resistance with Friar Tuck, but their methodology,
the quote-unquote resistance.
The quote-unquote resistance.
They seem to be the only members of said resistance.
Right. And so Will Scarlet is like, I guess, meant to be like the union leader figure. Like that's what he's an allegory for, is like the union leader. But he doesn't want to engage in the methods that involve theft and potential violence and so on that Marion wants to be involved in. And they have a big argument about it. But then it turns out like his motivations have very little to do with class consciousness and are largely selfish, because he basically tells her to her face, literally nobody's going to stop me from moving up the political ladder, not even you. And that was the moment when I went, oh, Will Scarlet's an asshole. Will Scarlet is a piece of shit.
I'm just in it for the politics to make myself a higher up in the society.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And it's terrible, but it also makes it so that, like, so this is what the thing that bugged me about this whole thing is that Robin Aloxia comes home. He sees the woman he loves, who he's been waiting to see for years, with another man. And his response is, understandably, he's hurt. That would suck to find out. He runs away, throws up, is very upset. But what he doesn't do, which is what you would expect him to do in a lot of movies of this sort, is throw a big conniption over it. Like, to go confront her or anything. She, in fact, is the one that comes to him. And then tries to make him feel guilty about the fact that he's not reacting the way that she wants and is not happy about the circumstance. But, like, this is a guy who just came back from war, right, in Arabia, which is just basically the Iraq War.
Whose home has been destroyed.
Whose heart has been destroyed, his life's been uprooted, and he sees the woman he loves, who we see all these loving moments in the beginning of the movie that are like the prequel story or whatever. All that is gone. So, like, the life he led is gone. So, understandably, he's hurt. And he tells her to her face, like, I don't know what you expect from me. Like, he's basically telling her, like, it hurts. Like, and she's like, well, why are you acting this way? And it's like, you came to me. Like, I was not near you. I was not at you. I was minding my own shit. And then when Will Scarlet acts up, I think it's really important that they make Will Scarlet, like, a giant fucking dick. In order for us to feel sympathetic to her effectively cheating on Will Scarlet with her ex. Understandably complicated feelings they do not explore in any meaningful way, but I think it's very convenient that Will Scarlet becomes, like, the very thing he supposedly doesn't want to become, which is a class traitor, monstrous villain. He's only marginally better than the Sheriff of Nottingham because we haven't seen him do a racism yet.
Yeah, basically. I don't know, like, I could not find a coherent character in Marion at all. She was just like, she was a sexy lamp. She was literally the only woman in the movie that had, like,
any lines,
or a significant, like, more than one line. Part. Yeah. I mean, like, I will give the movie, actually, no, I'll save that for my like, because God knows I'll be grasping at straws. But, like, she's literally the only female character, and she's not really a character. She is the sexy lamp.
She's a caricature.
On multiple occasions, we just see her in night clothes. Like, the only difference between this movie and a rated R movie is that we don't see her breasts.
And like, I'm gonna say it, but I have no idea what the acting ability of the actress is outside of it, but they, like, get, so I'm not gonna, like, cast aspersions on her entire career, but it was fucking garbage. Like, total garbo. She was... It's like she wandered in off the street and was just reading lines. Like,
I get the very firm impression that many of the people in this movie, some people went, oh, this is not good, and I'm not going to put a lot of effort in. And some people went, fuck it. She's in that first camp where she's like, I'm just not really trying. Ben Mendelsohn was like, fuck it. I'm just going to chew the scenery. Let's go. I'm going to do my best to be the Alan Rickman of this movie.
He tried so hard, and I was just like, Ben Mendelsohn, you are not Alan Rickman in this movie, because unfortunately, there's just not enough for you to work with.
They give him nothing.
He tried, bless his heart.
The closest line that's memorable is when he basically tells John that he's gonna bathe him in pig's blood before he kills him, so he can't reach the Islamic version of heaven. Like, that's the closest memorable line I can think that he says.
Drown him in a cage.
Oh, there you go, the cage one. But, like, everything he gets is, like, even less interesting than anything Alan Rickman does in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
It's literally his facial expressions are more interesting than any line he says.
Yeah. I mean, he basically tries to, like, make up for the complete lack of scripting in this movie by just being really loud, and I'm just like, you know what?
You did
I would
your
normally
best.
complain about this Ben Mendelsohn, but that's all you had.
It is. It's all he had to work with.
You had no other choices.
He is good as a villain. Like, no movie with Ben Mendelsohn where he's a villain have I sat down and thought, yeah, I don't believe him as a giant asshole.
I mean, and, like, he's so fucking good in, like, Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
He's, like, one of the best parts of Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like, you know, like, his career survived this trash fire. Jamie Dornan went on to do better things like Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. Poor Tim Minchin. That's all I can say.
Even Taron Egerton has done better movies than this by a mile.
In the middle of doing this movie.
He did The Kingsman Golden Circle. They paused production on this movie so he could do Kingsman.
So, this movie is bad, and it should feel bad.
Yes.
Are we actually going to do, like, organized dislikes now?
No, we're doing likes, because we cannot
do
end
likes
on likes for this movie.
Okay.
There's no way.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Go
I gotta
for it,
like.
Alex.
I gotta like.
Go
I
for
gotta
it.
like. So, I will say that as much as I hated the bizarre and unexplained anachronism, some of the combat sequences with the archery were actually really fun and, like, 1,000 times better than anything that they've done with Hawkeye. Note, I have not watched the Hawkeye series yet because I don't care. But, like, in the Avengers movies, Hawkeye is such a basic ass bitch, and then what they did in this movie for the action sequences with bows was actually, like, way more interesting and cool.
Hawkeye.
I'll give you that.
Basic ass bitch.
Basic ass bitch.
I mean, it might actually be unfair of me to say Hawkeye is a basic ass bitch. Jeremy Renner is a basic ass bitch.
Yeah, Hawkeye in the movies is a basic ass bitch. Hawkeye in the comics, not a basic ass bitch. But Jeremy Renner, Hawkeye,
correct.
Definite basic bitch. Likes pumpkin spice
Wow.
lattes way too much.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
has his own syrup so he can make them in the off-season. Basic kind of bitch.
Precisely. And boring archery where he's just like, I'm just gonna stand and, like, fire arrows. Where this was, like, dynamic and interesting. Like,
If inaccurate.
oh, it totally inaccurate, completely impossible, but fun to watch.
I did
Fun to
not
watch, yeah.
agree.
That's fine. It's okay if we disagree.
I hated the archery.
And the thing is, I will note that this is differentiated from, like, the repeating crossbows, etc.,
What
etc.
the fuck?
I mean, also, I will say, like, the parts where they're basically in the Iraq war sequence where they're running around with their bows drawn like they're fucking automatic rifles.
Oh, yeah.
That was the dumbest shit I've ever fucking seen.
They
in
are
my
a
life.
unit of archers that was sent into close quarters city combat.
Why are they using
What the fuck? Why you would never send a unit of archers
because-
into a city?
I can explain it. It's because that this is a very stupid movie. That a very stupid movie that's an allegory of the Iraq War that thinks it's a smart movie that's an allegory of the Iraq War, and it's not.
It's not.
That's entirely why they're, like, wandering around with, like, their bows drawn, like, going around corners and clear. Like, I mean, they actually fucking made the armor look like United States body armor.
It's so dumb.
On these guys.
Terrible.
So it was absolutely terrible. Like, no, that part was bad, but I'm talking about, like, you know, one of the times he goes in and does, like, his robbery and he's, like, got, like, 4 arrows in his hand, though, as Karina pointed out, she was like, shouldn't he have just brought more arrows? And I was like, shh, it's fine. Just let it happen. But, like, some of that was fun.
I will give you this much. Which is that I agree that conceptually the film has points that may be interesting.
Conceptually.
I mean, there were some parts of the action sequences where I was like, completely unrealistic, but did a cool thing. Because you know what? I'm not expecting my action sequences to be realistic. I watch kung fu movies and superhero movies, so I honestly don't want to hear about how, like, you can't do that with a bow. I know you can't do that with a bow, and in fact, that's why I'm so offended by MCU Hawkeye, is because they're like, we have people shooting, like, fucking magic rays out of their hands, but all this man can do is, like, fire a grappling hook arrow. Instead of, like, I'm gonna do 3 flips and fire, like, you know, like, completely physically impossible shit.
I'm gonna
like,
jump and shoot my bow.
just, like, fucking lean into it, man.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie, like, leaned more into it.
I do find it amusing that Hawkeye literally the only thing about him is that he's just really good with the bow. But it's not even a superpower. It's just that he's practiced a lot.
Yeah.
If he was a superpower, he'd be like Domino or something, where like he's just, no matter where he shoots it, the arrow goes where he wants it to go. Like, but no, that's not it.
I mean, they did more interesting things with archery and action sequences in The Lord of the Rings with
That's
Legolas than they ever did with
Shield
Hawkeye
surfing.
and MCU.
Yeah, the shield surf scene was cool.
mhm.
This did not have any cool shield surfing scenes, and I think that is a
And
mistake.
sadly,
therefore it is mistaken.
It's
It's a super mistake.
But anyway, that's the like I've got because that is what I'm clinging to. That's
I'm sure we're gonna come back to this because our dislikes are gonna be brutal.
Brutal. And the multitudes of dislikes alone will take a while. But
good lord.
Well, Becca, what about you? What do you got?
my like has qualifiers. Despite the fact that absolutely none of it matches the supposed time period, right? I actually enjoy the visual aspects of the movie, specifically the architecture and the clothing design, for themselves, not as part of this movie. I don't like them as part of this movie, but I like the lines as part of just general ideas of architecture and clothing.
I will agree with you that some of the fashion design was interesting, but like, okay.
I said it had qualifiers.
I've seen enough Shakespeare productions that are like, you know, it's Hamlet, but it's set in this different time period or whatever. Like, I can totally grok, we're taking this old story and we're just putting it in a completely anachronistic setting because, like, we thought it would be interesting and add something to the production. I don't think that works for movies because I think it requires, like, a level of audience buy-in you just don't get in a movie. But I'm also not, like, super married to, like, the faux medievalist shit that we see in movies anyway. However, while I agree that there were a lot of interesting costume designs, the actual, like, costume design as a whole, like, if it had been like,
oh yeah, no,
hey,
I'm
it's
talking
Robin Hood, but in the
costumes.
1920s, like, yeah, it's like, if it had been like, hey, it's Robin Hood, but in the 1920s, I would have been like, weird choice, but okay, I can roll with it. But instead I was just like, would you just pick a fucking time period?
Yeah.
Would you have a unified sense of style?
Yeah.
Like, all of these, there's a bunch of looks in this that are being served that are, like, really interesting, and none of them go together.
Yeah, no, none of it goes together. That's what my qualifier is. Like, none of it actually belongs in the movie.
Right.
None of it. But
like,
it looks good.
He looked like he was wearing, like, shit that he borrowed from Rogue One half the time. Like future space fascists.
Yeah, he really did. It was like, oh, I just took this off the set, you know? Here's this incredibly straight line that you would never get from hand sewing. You know, here's this incredibly weird architecture of the shoulders that, again, you would never get from hand sewing. It's stuff like that. I'm not arguing about that. Like, it's terrible and it doesn't match, but it looks cool.
Yeah, like, as individual looks, there were some really cool looks. I will agree with you.
Especially in the church orgy scene.
Well,
because there were people with blue eyebrows.
Wait, hold on.
Blue
Church
sparkly
orgy?
eyebrows.
Okay, no,
there was no orgy in this
and
movie. I watched this movie.
It was basically an orgy.
Like, the gambling,
the gambling thing. It was basically an orgy.
And another fucking thing, Becca, that I bet you will agree with me. I find it so offensive that they took the one female character in this entire movie and they gave her the most fucking boring outfits
with a fucking bowler hat.
Right?
She had a bowler hat. Who the fuck gives a woman with a, like, what? Why did you put her in a bowler hat?
Well, I mean, she was just like, she looked like she spent most of her time dressing out a Hot Topic. Like, she was like a little pleather coat and like a little, like, bustier, but I'm too shy to make it a real one thing going. Like, what the fuck?
At one point in, like, the beginning scene where they're showing her and Robin falling in love, right? She's wearing a crop top sweater.
Don't get me started.
With a long skirt. And I was like, if a woman showed her midriff in whatever period this is, she would be burned at the stake.
Well, okay. We're going to set aside the historical anachronism for now. Like, we're going to set that entirely aside. I'm sorry, but a crop top sweater and a skirt is the most, like, fucking boring ass shit. Like, did she just come rolling in from undergrad English? Like...
But yeah, so individually, some of the pieces really worked. They just looked good. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the occasional visual flashes. And then specifically the architecture of that room with all of the other lords, where they're talking about the taxes and, like, talking about when Robin, like, offers the bounty on himself. Like, that architecture was just visually appealing and very, just, like, interesting. And the columns were something that I don't think craftsmen at that point in time would be able to create. But, you know, so that it just looked visually cool. But all distinctly out of place, and the ideas did not flow together.
Not at all. Yeah.
At all.
Yeah,
But,
like,
you
I
know.
feel like if they'd had a coherent idea and they'd put together a coherent anachronistic setting, I feel like we all could have gotten on board with it. But instead it was just like,
I
bleh.
agree completely.
Yeah, it was very much this is what the costume designer had. And they didn't want to pay her to make new
I feel
pieces.
like this is a movie that would have benefited from just spending more time on building its anachronistic world and accepting this is not the real, like what you were saying, Alex, like there are lots of Shakespeare adaptations, like one of my favorites is Titus by Julie Taymor, which takes Titus Andronicus and puts it in a more modern setting. The only thing that really stays the same is just the Shakespeare language stays the same. But it takes the themes of it and applies it to a more modern political setting. It works remarkably well. You can do Robin Hood in other time periods and other settings. So and in this case, it seems like they want like a secondary fantasy world Robin Hood. Cool. Just own it. Just make a secondary fantasy world Robin Hood and be done with it. It doesn't need to be embedded in the sort of like classic lore that is attached to the Robin Hood myth. It can just be, this is not our world, this is some alternate reality. We're going to own this, we're going to make up some fake history, and we're going to be done with it. But they don't even want to do that. They still want us to think it's like actual England, and that the costumes make total sense, that there's all of it just like, it's completely incoherent from like start to finish, this entire fucking film.
Yeah, they mention England like twice in the whole movie. And it makes it sound like Nottingham is its own country.
Right. No, y'all, the most amazing fucking part is when they're like, we're sailing this ship, like a literal, like, 3-masted sailing ship into Nottingham.
A landlocked city, if I remember.
Well, it's near a river, so they could have taken a barge. I'm sure there was a lot of barge traffic, but no, I was just like, I feel like I'm going crazy.
But as you said, it's near a river. It's not built next to the river. It is not built on the river.
We're going to come back to the geography of this world. I'm sure Alex is going to rip us a new one for this.
Jesus Christ.
Yes. Sean, what did you like about this film?
Absolutely nothing.
You have to come up with something.
There has to be something that gave you like a little twinge in your dead heart.
Honestly, almost nothing about this movie could I say I really liked. And so I guess if I had...
Well, but that was an almost. You have to pick something.
I honestly...
What about Jamie Foxx?
No, he was awful in this.
He got nominated for a Razzie for worst supporting actor.
But he was awful before I even knew that knowledge.
Ben Mendelsohn yelling. What about that? Did that bring you joy?
I mean, I will say I liked Ben Mendelsohn in the movie until they went with like the weird modern racism thing, which I'm sure we'll come back to. I guess I would say that the union of hood crafters was very well represented on this movie. This was after, I don't know if people know, but in the 2000s and early 2010s, the Hood Crafters Union was really struggling. They lost a huge case against Amazon in order to protect their right in order to be represented in trade union quarterly. And as a result, they lost a lot of market power. But one of the things that happened in the eventual making of this movie was that the union reformed and actually made all of the hoods that are shown in this movie, because there are these moments when they're tacking hoods on the walls and stuff. Those had to be made by people, and it was done primarily by members of the union. Amazon actually sued this movie in case you didn't know, over trademark infringement of the hoods. But they lost in court, but decided to settle instead of accepting the actual loss. This is actually the reason why, for those that are listening to this a little bit later, which will be several weeks from now, but you will know that the news about the very first Amazon union that just happened, well, that actually came out as a result of the lawsuit over this movie due to the union of hood crafters. So,
did we take a left turn into another alternate universe?
Wait. No, Sean, actually, I have another, like, genuine like-ish.
Oh?
The casting on the extras was more racially diverse than a lot of other similar movies like Guy Ritchie's King Arthur movie.
I mean, that's fair.
That's true.
There were actual non-white people in the background extras, which is more than many movies can say.
Yeah,
That is true.
that's fair. But there's still only one who's given more than one speaking line.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
This
But
movie
yes,
was
the
quite-
extras were relatively diverse.
Yeah.
Although, no, another person of color does get a speaking line, but he gets, like, one.
She gets one.
No, there's a guy who gets it,
Yeah.
too.
Okay, so there's two, because there's a woman who gets one, too.
Yeah. But they're, like, one-liners. Yeah. I will say, like, in all honesty, I really did enjoy Ben Mendelsohn in this movie.
Yeah.
He
Especially
is
the death.
villainous.
He was doing his best. Bless his heart.
Yeah.
Bless his heart. He was trying.
I bought him. I really did. Like, when I saw him for the first time, I was like, ooh, that's not a good man. He's a very bad man. And he does pull that off very well. And I think that he deserves some credit for having to work with the absolute piss poor stuff he had to work with, that he managed to still come across as remarkably villainous.
Yeah, I really can't believe this made it past a table read.
I cannot either.
Right.
Nobody.
You should have known.
Look, okay, I was telling Becca this, and I know we're getting into dislikes here, but, like,
It's time. We've all gone through a like. We're good.
it is nuts to me that this movie didn't get greenlit from, like, it went through multiple stages when someone could have said some shit, right? It had an original script. There were two scripts floating around when this movie was being made. There's one from Sony and one from Disney. And it was presumed that this is based on the Sony script, I guess, or whatever. I don't
I would
know.
assume so. It is definitely not. It does not smell
It's
like
not
a
a
Disney
Disney.
script.
It doesn't
Yeah.
smell like a Disney script. So there was that script, which eventually became whatever the fuck this movie is. And then someone read that script and went, I think I'll attach money to that. And then it went through
Right?
presumably some revisions, and then some, like, fucking committee went, yes, that sounds good. Then they did a table read, and nobody said anything then either. And then they probably went to, like, the very specific pre-production phase where they're setting all their sets up, and, like, people are reading the script and getting ready, and nobody said anything. And then on the fucking days they were there, nobody said anything. And then when they were editing this movie, nobody said anything. And then when they released the movie for its first screen tests, nobody said anything. How the fuck did this movie get made? How? There were so many people who did not say no.
Well, but again, you have to remember who produced the movie.
It's Leonardo
Leonardo
DiCaprio.
DiCaprio was one of the
Leonardo
producers?
DiCaprio
What the
produced
fuck,
this
man?
movie.
I thought he had better taste. Like, I saw him in the producer credits, and I was just like, I feel like I'm having a stroke.
He probably
What
didn't
is
know.
happening?
He didn't
it was
know.
probably his company, and he had no idea.
Yeah, he just, like,
God.
attached his name to it in order to make sure that it got lots of investors. Like, that's basically it.
Oh,
It's
bet
not
he's
good.
regretting that one.
I hate this movie.
Oh,
I
it's-
just...
It is objectively a terrible
It made
movie.
me angry in a way that a torture cinema movie has not made me angry in a long fucking time.
I'm
Like,
with
I
you.
did not expect to be so mad about it.
You're welcome.
Look, this
Fuck
is
you,
the
Becca.
thing. Alex and I have done many together. Becca and I have done a handful together.
Yes.
One of the things that has happened is there are a lot of movies we watch where we're like, look, it's not good, but it's got some interesting elements, or it's kind of fun, or it's just bad, but, like, not offensively bad. And then we get movies where we're like,
or I'm just bored.
or we're
You
bored.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, or, like, I remember you two were on for Family Man, which, like, even you would admit, like,
yeah.
it has elements that, while you were bothered by its treatment of the family dynamic in particular, for obvious reasons, which you can listen to that episode if you're interested in, you at least admitted, like, it wasn't a horrific movie. It was fine. It was just not great.
I'd watch it before I watch this bullshit again.
Precisely. This movie is infuriating. because at no point
Yes.
does it make sense. The plot is constantly telling you things that are not shown in any meaningful way on screen.
The combat is visually cool, but in reality does not work like that.
Or I'm not even getting to like the issue of anachronisms or whether or not it like could work physically. I'm talking like entire segments of the
movie
plot
sucks.
are never shown to us.
The plot is not
Yeah.
good. They keep messing with the timing because at the beginning they're like,
Is
oh,
it
you
2
were declared
years or
dead
4
2
years
years
he's
ago,
gone? How-
and then towards
Yeah.
the end they're like, you've been gone for 4 years. Like, what?
How long has he been dead?
Yeah,
I don't fucking
it's-
know.
And worse, I don't care. It's narratively incoherent, and it's like you can tell that this movie thinks that it's really smart, and it's not. It's super
It is
not.
one of the dumbest movies we have watched for torture cinema, and we've watched a
It was
lot of movies.
real dumb.
We've watched some really fucking dumb movies.
Oh, we've watched
Yeah.
some dumb movies. Becca and I just finished Runaway from 1984, which is not an intelligent movie.
Woo!
But
It
I
was
would
so
submit, by comparison to
dumb.
this movie, Runaway from 1984 with Tom Selleck is actually a genius level by comparison. Because at least I can
Ooh.
fucking follow what Runaway is about.
Yeah, at least it had a consistent plot.
Even some of the dumber movies that we've watched, I haven't felt actively disrespected by. Like, I felt like this movie was disrespecting me by basically being like, and now here is your unsubtle allegory of the American war machine in the Middle East. And I'm just
Ugh.
like, you are not fucking half as clever as you think you are, movie. And in fact, the way you're going about this is actually super insulting.
What's wild to me is they think they're being clever and at times think they're being subtle, but nothing about this movie is subtle. It is
Oh.
like
It is
The
as subtle
loudest
as
hammer.
as a rhinoceros horn up the ass. Like,
Or an arrow to a horse's
or
butt.
there is literally okay. No, hold on. We have to pause because there's a moment.
We're at my dislike. Come on, we're at my
No,
dislike.
no.
Let's go.
I have to talk about
Jesus
the horse
Christ.
being arrowed in the butthole. So there's a shot in this movie where I swear to God, a horse gets an arrow right up its asshole. It like goes direct center into the ass.
the extensive use of like CGI arrows and horses, because let's also talk about how they have like the chase scene that's obviously supposed to be just like a car chase scene,
Right.
except it's horses and carts. And there's like
on
a
a
part.
balustrade.
No. I'm even talking like before that, when the horses like run at a wall and like bust
Oh,
through
right.
it like a car would. Yeah.
Yeah, this is my dislike. My dislike is exactly how the horses fucking act in this fucking movie because they're not real horses. No horse would run directly towards a wall, especially not a four horse team carrying a fucking cart. No, they would not run directly towards a wall. A horse would not go up steps voluntarily and then make jumps over balconies, right? Over like tall wooden shaky ass balconies.
It's so bad.
No, horses do not act like this. There is no way that you would ever convince a horse to do half the shit. No, like 99% of the shit in this movie.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
It's so bad. Like, it's the one thing that you can make realistic. Everybody knows, or not everybody knows, but like, most people know how a typical
I was
horse
gonna
acts.
say,
Most
apparently the people
know-
who directed this fucking movie don't know how it works.
Apparently not. Apparently they don't know that horses are fucking cowards. You know?
They have to
Like,
be trained to do things that a horse would normally not do.
it drove me like actually just bonkers because you cannot tell me that they really thought horses would do that.
And they were like, it'll look cool, and it doesn't.
It doesn't-
Really
It
doesn't.
doesn't
look
even look cool. It just looks dumb and it completely takes you out of what little immersion they can gain because you're like, why would that would never happen.
The scene in particular you're talking about, or Alex and Becca, I suspect are referring to, is like towards the end of the movie before they finally like go attack the sheriff directly. When like again, geography doesn't quite work. Where like apparently the minor camp is being invaded by the forces brought in by the sheriff of Nottingham because it's not technically part of Nottingham.
Who seems
whatever.
to have an endless supply of
So
soldiers.
they show up and they're fighting, and obviously the Hood, aka Robin Loxley, shows up and he's like, I'm gonna like save some people, like Marion, because Marion is a hot stuff. We gotta save her. And then they do basically a giant chase on horses. At first in carriage with like carts they're doing, and then eventually as just horses. And so it's this big sequence in this area that's like a weird industrial camp with like lots of like wood stairways and things, and they run through walls.
Random fire plumes?
Random fire plumes.
Random fire plumes, a fucking vat of molten lava that is presumably molten metal or something that just completely tips over, despite the fact that you see no visible fire source that's actually heating the metal.
Yeah, it doesn't.
In the vat.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the entire conception of that mining
It makes no sense.
Or mining town.
It's a mining camp from the late 1800s, for fuck's sake.
You don't know what they're mining. Is it gold? Is it coal? I don't know.
I mean, who knows?
You wouldn't have that much open wood.
Well, they talk about fire damp, which is a coal thing, and I was just like,
yeah.
I'm so confused.
But also, like, why are they mining, like, why do they have just this giant molten vat of some sort of metal or lava if it's a coal mine?
None of it makes sense. Look, this, they have decided that this movie would be set simultaneously in medieval England, but like a fantasy version of medieval England, but also like the 1850s. Like, they think it's in both times simultaneous.
But also, like, about 200 years in the future where you have different, like, coat line. I don't know.
It makes no sense. I mean, there's literally moments when people wear modern garb. Like, just like it's made sort of vaguely medieval, but it's clearly, it's just like a regular t-shirt. Like,
it is clearly modern clothing.
I mean, I will note that the costume designer on this was the same guy who did, like, Rocket Man and Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay, it makes sense. He's going for that.
Yeah,
he
so
didn't want to make new pieces.
I mean, nothing in his list of credits indicates that he should have been on a movie like this.
It makes no sense. I want there to be consistency in literally anything in this movie, and there really isn't.
Consistency.
It doesn't have to be faux Hollywood medieval Third Crusade bullshit. I just want it to feel like it's all in the same universe,
and it's not.
And I'm here to tell you,
in the same year.
Yeah, like Ben Mendelsohn and what's his bucket who played Robin Hood don't exist in the same world.
They do not.
Like, no, they don't.
They like fucking do not. It just doesn't. Ugh.
It doesn't feel like they're in even the same movie. You know, it's so confused, and I. The thing is, I think what I was saying earlier, and I feel like we're just gonna keep hammering this in repeatedly because we can't help it because this movie is a disaster. If they just settled on this is a secondary world interpretation of Robin Hood, it's not our actual world. We're offering, like, it's like, you know, like they do a steampunk story of Three Musketeers, right? It's France, but they have like fancy dirigible ships and shit. And it's got the same basic story of the Three Musketeers, but it's got dirigibles and fucking weird shit. Like, if you just own that that's the version of the future or this version of the past you're doing that's an alt history, and that is what we get, then you just own it. You just go into it and you keep it consistent throughout. But this wants to be lots of things. I mean, the one thing that I think is really interesting is they did, yet again, even though it's not in Robin Hood folklore, they brought back the Moor character, because this became especially famous with Robin of Sherwood, which was a UK TV show, but then in the 80s, but then was like really canonized by the Kevin Costner Robin Hood, which with Akeem played by Morgan Freeman, right, which is the Moor character who sort of helps. In this, they try to merge the Moor character with Little John, who has a whole other thing in the Robin Hood mythos. And I think it's really important that they wanted to do that, but then they didn't seem to want to explore his character in any meaningful way except as to accentuate his Muslimness, only when it was convenient for attacking him. He's a barbarian, or we're going to bathe you in pig blood.
Or emphasizing his disability, given that his hand is literally cut off.
Why did they never have a cool moment when he's got like an awesome sword on his hand or some shit? It's right there.
Instead, he makes like a big cup and then sticks his arm in it, which is a recipe, like when it's still hot, which is a recipe for infection.
Yeah,
well, I mean, like, he does the thing where he, like, literally plates the end of his arm in metal and he never punches anyone with it.
He does at the very end. He punches the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah.
But once. That's basically it. Like,
well, and it's just really, it's so yikes just because, I mean, he basically, like, you know, his son gets killed. He follows this like boring white bread to England.
Savior. This failed white savior.
Yeah, and then it's like, well, you're cool, so I'm gonna, like, train you and teach you all this stuff and, like, mastermind everything.
He somehow knows everything about a different country's political system.
Yeah.
And, like, the
a political
relationship
system
between
that makes
church and
absolutely
state.
no fucking sense. Just like everything else in
It's
this movie.
democracy, but not democracy. It's... What is happening?
There was a part where they were talking about voting, and I was like, what is happening?
Oh, the Loxley vote hasn't been counted.
It's like they
God.
went to, like, Rome. They went to Rome, is what they did. It was like, but this is not Rome?
But this is not Rome. They're not wearing
This is-
fucking togas. They're wearing
This
modern
is after
clothes.
the fall of Rome by many hundreds of years. What are you talking about? Why are we doing this?
It's so, yeah, and it's just like, so Jamie Foxx basically literally just exists to help the white guy be a hero, which is, I mean, not uncommon in movies, but just vomitous.
And the other problem with Jamie Foxx's character is that he is one of the only black people, the only black person as a main character, the only black person with scarification on this continent, and yet somehow nobody recognizes him. When he's pouring oil across a fucking road or on horses through this entire city, he's the only one-handed black man with scarification, and yet no one notices. Nobody knows who this man is.
Because everybody in this movie is not very smart.
Nobody's smart. And here's why I want to add to this, which is why I stopped being bothered by that about halfway through the movie, which is that Robin of Loxley, aka Robin Hood, spends 90% of this movie not wearing his fucking mask that hides his face, which is a famous face in this fucking movie, because he's Robin of Loxley, a lord who is known in court, and he's constantly taking his goddamn mask off so people could see his face. And so that's the moment when I stopped, Becca, when I knew that was an issue for you, and that was the moment when I went, I can accept that. Because
nobody recognizes
how
Robin.
How the fuck is he
when
doing
he
this?
Never wears his
He
mask.
never wears his mask. I know the movie was made in 2018. I get it. But in the COVID era, I am just screaming inside, like, wear your fucking mask. What are you doing? Just constantly put the mask
It just
on, you
keeps
son
falling
of a bitch.
off.
He's constantly
so
taking
bad.
it off. It's not impeding your ability to talk, you asshole. You can still talk and breathe. Just wear the fucking mask.
Yeah, you literally have like a thin scarf over, like that's hanging off your nose.
It's fine. The Black
You
Plague
baby.
is coming. Wear the mask.
It is less believable that Marion didn't see his face before she recognized his voice.
That's so dumb. She's
Right?
dumb. How did she not know
You
who
had
he
so many
was?
opportunities to see his face, and yet you didn't recognize him until you heard his voice. Oh, I'd always recognize your voice. What the fuck? Yeah, you'd also recognize his fucking nose.
But she even gives him shit for it,
Oh
right?
my
Because
God.
she says to him that, oh, like, did you really think the mask was gonna, like, work for you? And he
work
was like,
for everyone
nobody else
else.
noticed. And I was like, no, there's no reason for us to accept that that's true. Everybody knows it's fucking him. They all know.
Yeah.
I hate this movie
It's
so much.
bad.
It's so bad.
It's so dumb.
It's just, it makes no sense.
It's so
And,
bad.
like, he's the worst vigilante ever. He has no secret
He's
identity.
absolutely dumb.
I don't give a shit what you think. He has no secret identity. And this is supposed to be his origin story.
I know that. I found that out in the last 20 minutes of this fucking movie.
Oh yeah, and actually Jamie Dornan is the real sheriff of Nottingham. This movie threatened us with a sequel, but thankfully I don't think we ever have to worry about that. Thank fuck.
No.
Oh, no, it's
God.
bombed.
No,
It bombed
never.
in the box office.
Oh god, it's just ugh.
Alex, I know you want to talk about the geography of this world and your dislike, so please explain to
Well,
us.
I mean, it's mostly like, well, no, I mean, I don't really have a lot to say other than just like the geography is completely incoherent. And the moment where I was just like, I know this is garbage and I hate everything was when they're literally sailing a three-masted ship and they're like, Nottingham's off the whatever bow, and I'm like, no, Nottingham isn't on a fucking coast.
No, but apparently it is built on a river. Apparently it's built on a zigzagging river through the English coast, despite the fact that the real Nottingham is merely a hill. It is just a hill.
I don't even know where to start. It's so bad. I mean, also the distance between Nottingham and the Holy Land also don't make any. Anyway, like nothing in this movie makes sense. It's just
none.
It's garbage. It's that's all I've got. It's just garbage. Garbage.
And returning to the nonsensical combat, he's in the city and like the person gets kidnapped. How the fuck do they not realize that they're not alone? And also, why the fuck do you not do the stone throwers first? If you're planning on killing them all anyways.
Becca, you are getting no. You are getting lost in the detail when the entire conception of we're going to send a detachment of archers into the streets doesn't make any sense. And I mean, like, again, I get that bows are supposed to stand in to semi-automatic weapons. I see this gesture.
For our dear listeners, Sean is repeatedly pointing at his chest.
I mean, like, the repeating crossbow thing, and there's literally a scene where he, like, grabs a crossbow from someone and, like,
disarms it like a gun?
Yeah, like, partially, like, drops the clip out of it like you would with a gun, and I was just like...
And at one point, somebody has, like, a shoulder-loaded crossbow bazooka thing.
Well, I mean, there's, like, this thing where they have, like, these weird repeating crossbows, right? Which are supposed to be a big deal. And then suddenly they have them in England with no explanation. And then there's the other weird thing where it's supposedly he has a longbow. It is not a longbow. It's a short bow. And then, like, one of the big reveals is, like, John is like... oh, here's a recurve bow that's got, like, a little cool, like, brass knuckle thing on it, but, you know, whatever. And I'm like, yes, a recurve bow is a giant jump in technology, but you have fucking repeating crossbows. So, like, why does anyone give a shit at this point? I mean, if these are supposedly, like, fucking longbows, which, again, they're not.
They're not.
I mean, because a longbow's fucking taller than you. Like,
yeah, they're fucking huge.
You're supposed to be standing on a hill, killing people across a field with them.
You do not go into close quarters combat.
That's what the fucking Welsh did to the French in Agincourt.
You literally cannot draw a Old English longbow the way that they do in this for the fast shooting. It literally is impossible because the draw weight is 75 to 120 pounds depending on how it's designed. It literally cannot be done. I mean, look, to put in perspective, I know that there was like a trivia note about this. Imagine picking up a 100-pound kettlebell and keeping it off the floor just using one of your arms. That's what's required. Now, be honest with yourself. How many of you can pick up a 100-pound kettlebell and hold it there for long periods of time?
Not me. That's why I only shoot a recurve.
One of these trivia things just completely mind-fucked me. The set and costume designers were instructed to make everything 1/3 historically correct, 1/3 contemporary, and 1/3 futuristic to achieve the movie's unique look. What the fuck?
That actually explains a lot.
You cannot balance 3 different time periods.
No.
That's
effectively.
just no way. No.
Oh my god. So, wow, it was a deliberate... Wow, okay.
So the set and costume designers were just fucked from the beginning.
Yeah, they were like, well...
they had no chance.
This is what you wanted. This is what you get. Cool.
Wow.
God, this director should get sued for malfeasance.
Also, Taron Egerton is apparently afraid of horse riding.
Yeah, he didn't ride any horses during this, so it's a
that
stunt
makes
double
sense.
or face replacement or whatever. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, did Taron Egerton actually do any of the stunts in this movie? Probably not.
Oh, goodness, no.
I mean, he probably trained, but he trained with Lars Anderson, which means he learned shit.
Whose dislike is it at this point? I mean, I know you wanted me to say more about the geography, but all I've got is fuck this movie.
No, I think we all just have a mutual
antipathy.
Oh, we hate this movie.
about, everything is awful about this film.
All right, Sean, baby, what is your dislike?
I hate that this movie is an insult to every Wired episode on YouTube in which they bring in a medieval siege and medieval weaponry scholar to talk about film adaptations of actual medieval weaponry and sieges. Because everything about how this film treats literally any aspect of its supposed weaponry is absolutely batshit insane. And nothing quite gets it as the thing that Becca alluded to before, which is, and we've talked about already, which is the opening combat scene is they like go into, I don't know, Jerusalem or some like random fucking town in Arabia, wherever the fuck they are. They like enter this town and they're walking around as if bows and arrows are like machine guns, which you wouldn't do that because your bow and arrow people are kind of valuable and you don't want to waste them where they're going to fucking die, which they would die in close quarters because you can't shoot a bow like that. That's not how bows work, for fuck's sake. Give them knives and swords. Good God. And shields and other things. But anyway, they're going through like it's like, you know, Afghanistan, and then they get like bombarded by like machine gun crossbows, which like I'm kind of okay with. They're a little ridiculous, but whatever. That's like the least ridiculous part of the scene. But then once they realize that there's an entrenched position of these super like bazooka crossbow people or whatever, they decide that, let's send in the rocks, which is just their fancy way of whatever they call it.
It's artillery.
Just fucking call them catapults.
The giant rock testicle throwers is what they need. The thing is, I'm not bothered by the idea that they would call them stone throwers. That's fine. Like, okay, cool. It's an alternate history. They call them something other than trebuchet because fuck the French. Whatever. But why would you not use those first?
Right?
This isn't actually...
Right?
This isn't actually a actual literal version of the Iraq War. It is an allegory. But allegories cannot work if you are treating them as literal. And in this context, that literality falls apart immediately. Because you would immediately, in sieging a city, bomb the shit out of it with your stone throwers or what we would call trebuchets or catapults.
Yep.
You would bomb the living shit out of it in order to take it down and get that city to surrender, or at least take down its defenses enough that you can invade it with an actual army. Why you're sending your archers in, I don't fucking know. That's not what archers are for. They're not your primary force. That is knights and soldiers and pikemen and all of that.
Close quarters
Those
combat.
are the people you want inside.
Yeah.
Right. People who are going to stabby McStab.
They should have been standing outside the city and hucking arrows over the wall.
Right. Or shooting people in the parapet.
Yeah.
Right? Or, well, if they had parapets. I didn't look that closely to see if they had parapets. But, you know, on the walls. Right? Shooting people. Right? That would make sense. Right? And then that, by the way, would have an actual allegory or linkage to the Iraq War by way of snipers, because both Iraqi forces and the U.S. forces had snipers. So you could just do that, and it would have very similar purposes. It would serve, the allegory would hold.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they have to make it like literal. And it's just why I hate so much that it's very clear that people in Hollywood don't read fucking books.
Oh, it's obvious.
Because some of those people, they do not read shit. They know nothing about either Robin Hood, the stories, the incarnations of this character.
Yeah.
Like, they saw Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and went, that is the urtext of Robin Hood. They know fuck all about Robin Hood. And then they know nothing about the medieval period in order to make those extrapolations of alternatives. And then they know very little about the Iraq War, except the Iraq War bad.
Yeah.
Like, that's the extent of their understanding of these things. And the problem is that you could make this a very intelligent, high thriller action movie that is a lot of fun, but is underneath that very clever. The movie we get is
terrible.
One of the dumbest movies we have ever
Absolutely
watched for
horrific.
torture cinema.
Yep.
So much so that I honestly am getting angry talking about it because it's so fucking bad.
It is.
It is such a dumb movie on every fucking level. And I had to pick a one dislike, and it is just specifically the way it treats literally all medieval armament altogether. It is utterly nonsensical. And that's not even saying anything for the fucking plot, which makes no goddamn sense in this movie.
There is no
either.
plot. It's just a series of scenes that somebody threw together and called it good.
Yeah.
There is no plot to this movie besides Robin Hood good, Sheriff bad.
It is dumb as balls.
And Church also bad.
Things just jump ahead. They just jump ahead and skip parts. It's like they had all the, like, they went and they looked at all the different versions of Robin Hood since 1980 and went, what are all the cool scenes from that? How do we shove that in the same movie, but not connect them all?
Well, the first Robin Hood film came out in 1908, So they had...
I was thinking since 1980. So.
I know, but like they had 110 years of potential Robin Hood filmography, and they still came up with a pile of garbage.
It's so dumb. Nothing's connected to anything else.
Nothing.
Like, why is he working with this guy? Like, the only reason we know... Like, when I read the summary about this, I was reading the summary again and, like, going, okay, I have to do the summary for this movie. Like, I might want to make sure I didn't miss anything important. And it kept saying, like, oh, he becomes disillusioned by the war. And I was like, but the only thing we have of that is literally one fucking scene.
And also, speaking of war, Robin of Locksley is a lord.
Right!
In typical
and he's treated
war,
like a regular soldier.
He would
like
be like an officer, but he's just like a fucking private. He has no authority. His commander doesn't get in trouble for hitting a lord or shooting a lord because he shoots him in the fucking side.
Okay, just aside, like sepsis.
The fact that they just pull those arrows out.
Well, yeah. Okay, no.
Marion just pulls a fucking arrow out of his heart.
Yeah, no, I was just sitting there going, why are they using just like, like round tip targeting arrows? Like, okay.
Where are the barbed arrows that would be typical of warfare?
But I mean, just the fact that where he's like, oh, I'm gonna shoot you in the stomach so you can go home on a hospital ship.
No, he'd be fucking dead in
he'd be fucking dead
hours.
of sepsis. Sepsis.
That
terrible way to go.
Would be
None
immediate.
of this makes any sense. All of
so
this,
bad.
like,
it's so
everything
bad.
about Robin of Locksley's position in the war makes no sense because
his house is seized for taxes,
right,
and then allowed to fall into disrepair, not sold, not done anything. Nobody does anything with it. He's a lord, but he has no power. But somehow he has enough power to have a vote on his council about taxes. What?
They wanted the allegory, but they didn't want to adjust the actual world to fit the allegory. This doesn't fit. He can't be drafted the way you're describing. No, the king just tells you, fucking raise your army, and you're gonna show up at the war. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not a draft statement.
Where are the servants?
Right?
Where is the person who watches over his manor?
If we were treating this allegory legitimately, because he comes from a wealthy, powerful family, he would go to this world's version of West Point, where he would become an officer. He would not be a lowly... He's treated in this as though he's just like a regular soldier. That makes no sense. He would be trained as a lord to become a warrior in order to be able to lead other men into battle. That would be his job.
He can certainly ride horses like a lord,
right,
rather than a commoner.
So why is he treated like he's just a common soldier? He's not. Also, no, you absolutely not. Just some random dude who happens to have some power in the army shooting a lord and getting away with it? No, No, that motherfucker dead.
Yeah, so nothing about this movie. This movie knows nothing about military structure.
Nothing.
Nothing about medieval times. Like, nothing.
Nothing about this works.
They did no research. They were just like, I want men who shoot good.
Like, there is the big truism in screenwriting is don't let the facts get in the way of the truth. But the problem is, this movie has no truth that it is trying to communicate. And at a certain point, it's I think it's something I've come back to several times when we've watched movies like this, where it's like, when we're sitting there picking apart these details, the basic problem is not necessarily that they got the details wrong. It's that the story they are telling us is so boring and doesn't grab you that you can look at all of these details and start noticing what's wrong instead of like, I'm gripped by this, so I don't care what's wrong. It's like, I keep coming back to like, superhero movies and their dumb action sequences, but like, when you find the movie fun enough, you don't care that it makes no sense. When it is communicating something interesting to you that connects with you, you might notice certain things, especially if you have like a specialization in some area of knowledge, but you're just like, you know what? It's fine. I don't care. They can have a pass. When you start nitpicking like this, it really just indicates that the script is just like poo. It's just so bad.
Yeah, the movie was just terrible because there's nothing to distract from the inaccuracies.
Mm-hmm.
There is no immersion to break because there was no
you can't immerse yourself in a thing that's 1/3 medieval, 1/3 modern, and 1/3 futuristic. That's not a style. That's incoherent. I
Yeah.
hate this movie.
It's completely incoherent.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Oh God, I hate this movie so much.
I hate it. Which takes us
It's so
to
bad.
probably what we need to get to, which is our final thoughts and our grade.
Yeah.
And so, Alex,
probably.
I know you've been talking, so it might be easy to get to your grade, but do you have any final thoughts and a grade for this movie?
This movie sucks. This movie can lick my ass. It
Like a
gets an
potato?
F.
It can get rimmed like a potato.
It can rim my potato ass.
Was that recorded, or will our audience be completely baffled by that turn of
I
conversation?
think it's in the recording. It's just up to the editor at this point. But yeah, it can lick my potato ass. F.
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 Yeah.
F.
Yeah, I will follow that. My grade for this film is also an F. And I don't give that lightly. Like, I don't think I've rated another movie F,
God.
except maybe Krampus, because that movie sucked ass. But, like, this movie was so bad. And so, as a fan of King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, right, I actually enjoyed that movie. This movie sucks ass. It's so bad.
Potato ass. It sucks
It
potato
sucks
ass.
potato
Potato ass. This movie is so bad. It does not know what it is about. Like, the movie itself is so incoherent. It cannot stand on its own unless you are picking it apart.
Yeah.
To find some minuscule joy in the nitpickery. F. Just
F.
goodbye, fallen soldier. You are gone.
Well, it comes to me then, which is important because there is, in fact, a grade lower than this. And that grade is what this movie will be getting. Because the thing is, when we watch torture cinema movies, you know, we've watched bad movies. Movies where like, oh, this is not good. But there's things about it that are kind of fun to watch. You know, maybe it's just really bad, but in a fun way, or there's interesting things in it, but it just fails, or whatever. This movie, to me, is devoid of anything redeemable. I actually am of the mind that this movie never should have been made. It was a mistake to allow it to go to the theaters. I understand why they did it. They needed to make back some of the money that they wasted on this. But this movie is absolute garbage.
$100 million budget, right?
It's a $100 million
Or $100
budget.
billion?
They made $80-something million. They probably maybe made another 30 or 40 on DVD or Blu-ray sales. I don't know. Who fucking knows? Nobody in their right mind should watch this movie. This movie's fucking garbage. And for that reason, I give it an F-.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Becca.
Yeah, honestly, I will
Yeah.
change my grade to be
I
F minus.
am-
F-.
Yeah, I'll give it an F
An
minus.
F minus for fuck you, Becca.
Again, I had to make you all suffer with me because I watched this film with the hopes that it would be good, and it was just garbage.
It's absolute trash.
And like, I wanted this film to be good. I did. I really did. And 5 minutes in, I was like, what have I subjected myself to? And therefore, I had to subject our, lovely Patreon subscribers who joined us for the live watch and you two, because I love you, and therefore you must suffer with me.
I hate you.
There's a gigantic smile on my face.
Alex looks like, honestly, just wants to walk
Alex
away
hates
right
me
now.
at this moment. But, like,
Yeah. Why would
suffering
you?
is, I want to say that suffering is lessened when it is shared.
No,
But in this case, it
Absolutely
was
not.
definitely exponentially multiplied.
Oh, yeah.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
And on one hand, I'm sorry. On the other hand, I made people suffer with me.
Well, there you go.
You're a monster.
Absolute
I am.
piece of shit.
I really am, and I can't wait for the next one to catch my eye. And
No,
just-
fuck off. I'm
God.
never giving you the choices again. This.
Oh, you will.
Nope.
You know you will.
No, never.
You know.
You were given this power and you abused it.
You totally abused it.
No, from the outset, I told you that this movie was terrible, Sean. From the
Yeah,
outset,
but I didn't trust
told
your
you that it
opinion
was awful.
Because you thought Runaway was absolute garbage, and
Runaway was terrible.
and that movie is
was
nowhere
so
near
bad.
like this movie.
But I still gave that movie like a C-.
I know.
I gave this one an F-.
It's nuts. I
2 grades
I honestly
lower.
don't know what to do with you, Becca. It's just you've got some
Put me on
things
more
to work
torture
through.
cinemas.
Okay.
To try and make up for the deficit.
All right, folks. We've done it. We've made a podcast.
reluctantly.
Reluctant.
With great pain and suffering.
Alex looks like they're dying inside right now.
Alex genuinely might kill
I am
me after we
dying.
after this
I'm
recording.
already dead inside. I died last night when I watched this fucking movie.
And my apologies to the lovely, lovely Patreon subscribers who joined us for this movie because you did not know what you were getting into. And if you, if, dear listener, you would like to join us, maybe one day in the future I'll get to torture you as well.
There you go.
Don't threaten people. That's not nice.
It's not nice, Becca. All right, you're on timeout.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm
Bad
sorry.
Becca.
Bad
Bad.
Becca. That's it, folks. If you'd like to let us know what you thought about this episode or you have opinions about this piece of shit movie, go to skiffyandfanty.com/listener suggestions. Follow us at skiffyandfanty on Twitter and Instagram, and get our newsletter at skiffyandfanty.com/newsletter. Finally, if you like what we do, please support us at patreon.com/skiffyandfanty and give us some love by leaving a 5-star review on iTunes and other podcatchers. As for me, you can find me at Sean Duke on Twitter, SeanDuke.net, Alphabet Streams on Twitch, and patreon.com/TheJoyFactory.
And you can find me at Katsu Donbury on Twitter, alexax.com, or at patreon.com/alexax, all one word.
And you can find me at Becca E96.
But why would
on
you
Twitter.
want to? Because she's a fucking monster.
I'm also Dicey Druid on Twitch, and somewhere out there I'm on a couch plotting world domination with my cat army. Please join me. One day I
Do
will
not.
make everyone suffer with
Absolutely
my
not.
terrible movie choices.
Deprive Becca of all social contact for this
No.
travesty.
Make her wear the shame fate.
And remember, when you're reviewing our lovely podcast, you are reviewing us, not the movies. Please give us 5 stars and not the 1 star that you would give this movie.
We definitely deserve 5 stars for having suffered through this on everyone's
That
back.
is true.
Becca gets 1 star. Sean and I get 5 stars.
Yeah.
I personally deserve 0 stars, but we take what we can get. You're rating the entire podcast, not just
Look,
me.
Becca, just like other members of your generation, we'll give you a participation trophy. So.
Oh my
you
god.
terrible
What?
person.
Did Sean Duke just fucking replaced by a boomer? Jesus Christ.
This is boomer millennial humor. It is time to go.
Indeed, old man.
And on that note, awkward ending and scene.
And see.
I'm sorry, citizens. I'm deeply sorry.
It'll be okay one day. Goodbye.
Bye. If you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/skiffyandfanty or skiffyandfanty.com, our website, where you can get access to all of our fancy things. Our music comes from Holy Mole. You can support him and his work at patreon.com/holymole. Thank you for listening.